there seems to be plenty to talk about when we begin discussing a constitutional convention. And Robert Brown, who is a wonderful constitutional scholar, you've been very helpful to educating our viewers, and frankly, I've learned just listening to you as well. One of the things that you're wanting to talk about, well, I'll just let you explain to our viewers. You do it better than I will.
Well, sure. One of the things we spoke about last time was various amendment proposals, such as that I support the repeal of the 17th Amendment. And that's probably about the only thing I see that would be of any benefit, is repealing some of the things we currently have. But there are many other amendment proposals out there that sound good, but could either be just neutral or even harmful to the cause.
And one of them is if 30 states resisted...
Yeah. In Mark Levin's book, Liberty Amendments, he suggests that 30 states should have the power to overturn any federal law. And that sounds good, because there are a lot of federal laws that we really need to overturn. The problem with that is it ignores the power the states currently have, and it would replace it. For example, with the Real ID Act of 2005, 12 states, including my home state of Montana, stood up and said, no way. We will not implement the Real ID Act of 2005. 12 states standing together resisting that one got the federal government to back down. Now, if Mark Levin's amendment proposal were on the books, that would have given the federal government standing to say, well, that's nice that 12 of you oppose it, but until you have 30, you must comply. So we would have lost this battle if his amendment was in place.
Makes me wonder, Robert, what would happen if 12 governors, 12 state legislatures would simply say no to Obamacare?
Really the same thing, and we've seen this process used many times. It's generally referred to as nullification, but it's really the power that the 10th Amendment implies when anything that's not given to the federal is in the power of the states or the people. If it's not a constitutionally authorized power specifically listed, it's not in the federal jurisdiction. And we've seen over and over again, just a few states, like in this case 12 states, standing together have been enough to nullify unconstitutional acts.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if just 12 states would decide that they were going to elect governors and state legislators who would simply take the 10th Amendment at its face value and tell the federal government to take a hike?
Well, yes. You know, it's interesting, in Federalist number 34, James Madison addresses this question. I'm sorry, it's 44, where why is it that our state governors and state legislatures are required to swear an oath of office to the federal Constitution? And his answer is that it's their duty to give effect to the Constitution. And that's really what is at the heart of this nullification concept, is if they're holding their oath of office sacred and they're upholding it, they will stand up against laws that violate the Constitution. That's their oath of office, is to uphold the Constitution. Now, the various amendments being proposed, there are many of them tossed around out there that sound good, but we need to be very careful that when we begin messing with the Constitution, we might introduce unintended consequences, such as the one I just described. 30 states can overturn federal law would really destroy the power of the states to nullify.
Because it now would require 30 states.
Correct.
As opposed to 12 states or 15 states.
And again, like we started off before, we really don't need to amend the Constitution to solve our problems. We simply need to enforce it. We need to become educated on what it is and then hold our elected officials accountable to it. And that will solve the majority of the problems we're facing.
How do you suggest we hold our elected officials accountable to the Constitution?
Well, first of all, one voice generally isn't enough, but it's good to definitely make your voice known. But probably the most important thing all of us can do is start to educate our friends and our neighbors, expand our influence within our community. I offer courses on the Constitution, for example, on DVD and live presentations. And I encourage people to look to those types of tools to share with their friends, their family, their neighbors, and so on, to educate more people about the Constitution. Because in any congressional district, when enough people understand the Constitution, they will demand adherence to it, and you'll have a constitutional U.S. House of Representatives.
In the time that we have remaining, Robert, tell our listeners how they can access your DVDs, where they can get them, or how they can contact you if they
Certainly.
wanted you to come and do a class on the Constitution.
All we need to do is go to jbs.org, and in there's a shopping section. Click on the little button that says shop, and you can find the Constitution lectures on DVD there. You can also call the John Birch Society at 1-800-JBS-USA1 and request to get in touch with me that way. It's an easy way to schedule me for events or whatever that way.
Okay, well, if you want to connect with a radical, someone who actually believes the Constitution is still the best document to guide our nation, and these days that's radical, my friend.
Afraid so.
Then get a hold of Robert Brown, or call us, write us, or email us here at the Life and Liberty Group. We'd be glad to help.